All right, you're welcome back. It's still Hello Africa. I told you earlier that we'll be having a discussion after the break, and here it is, right in front of you. We'll be discussing transportation. It's something that we rarely talk about, but we'll be discussing that today. I told you I have a guest, but before I introduce him properly, I read this thing I've put together to you. Nigeria has seen so much of its transport network fall into despair in the wake of an unprecedented recent economic and population growth, as well as decades of underinvestment in critical transport infrastructure. Although rising passenger and cargo demand continues to strain nearly every segment of Nigeria's transport sector, over the course of 2017 and 2018, the country has made commendable progress in alleviating urban congestion, investing in critical infrastructure projects, and increasing private sector participation in the development of transport arteries. The opening of the Abuja Light Rail System, steady progress on the new terminal at Abuja's Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport, and rising public and private investment in the critical rail and road segments should see the transport sector become a key enabler of diversified non-oil growth, supporting economic recovery and growth plan targets, as well as an ongoing microeconomic recovery. The United Nations Population Fund recently stated that Nigeria's population currently stands at an all-time high of 201 million, representing an increase of 5.1 million from the 195.9 million it said the country had in October last year. The UNFPA, in its 2019 State of the World Population Report published on its website, had said the country's annual growth rate has been at average of 2.6% from 2010 to 2019, with the increase in the minimum wage from 18,000 to 30,000 naira, and so many lingering issues like some states being unable to pay the outstanding arrears as well as the new minimum wage. Hence, the need to harness an aspect of our economy, that is the transport sector. Against this backdrop, we will be discussing the potential transport industry in Nigeria. And with me to discuss this is Mr. Emmanuel John. He's a transportation consultant. You're welcome to the program, sir.
Thank you for having me.
It's good to have you in the studio and help us talk about these issues and many more. There are a lot of relating issues as regards should I call it? It's more like an untapped transport sector in Nigeria. Nigeria has such a population, like I read in my prologue. It's such our population is outrageous right now, and we need something to corroborate and make us at least have some kind of income that we won't have to, gnash our teeth about. First off, I would like to ask a very straightforward question. I said, how can we strike a balance between the increasing population and, an adequate transport system?
Thank you so much for that question. Once again, it's my delight to be here, to be part of this program and to share my thoughts on progress in transportation in Nigeria. Now, coming to your question, transportation remains one of the greatest economic potentials that Nigeria have to tap from, both in terms of increasing participation of the citizenry in economic development, as well as in terms of providing what is adequate, efficient, safe, and affordable mobility system for the citizens. So we have the area of the economic development where citizens can profit from, and we have the area of government being able to meet the target of efficient, safe, and affordable, as well as sustainable transportation system that meets global best practices. So there is great potentials that is largely unharnessed at the moment. And there's a need for government to focus on what is needful. Otherwise, we're going to have crisis of the future. I wrote a book published far back 2015, and that deals with the growth of population in Lagos and how it relates to transportation. And my emphasis was simple. They say United Nations Population Fund says Lagos was 25 million as at that time. And by that population, I did an analysis comparing Lagos with other big cities of the world, for instance, Tokyo and New York. Within 20 years, Lagos had grown 138% in population. New York had grown only 8%, and Tokyo had grown only 5%. But Africa generally, and then Nigeria, have no resources to develop adequate infrastructure to cope with the pace of population growth. Neither do we have the intention, the political will, to invest adequately in transportation to meet the demands. So my emphasis in that book was that if we don't do something now, in the next 20 years, our cities will be grounded. There will be no infrastructure to accommodate the required vehicular population to move people from place to place. And that makes it a critical issue for us to discuss. Recently, I just finished my MSc in transportation, and I did a study comparing the transportation system of Abuja and Amsterdam. When I suggested the topic, my lecturers were not willing because they are asking me, what basis are you comparing a big nation who is doing well with a local Nigeria? And I told them, if you compare black with gray, the tendencies are you won't see the clear lines. Compare Nigeria with South Africa, compare Nigeria with Kenya, you will see the lines. But when you compare a high-performing nation and a low-performing nation, then you see how naked you are. Sometimes you think you are doing well. But when you compare it to where people are actually doing well, then you know that you are doing nothing. And I give you just one single outcome of that research. In 2003 and 2004, Abuja, for instance, invested heavily. I don't want to use figures now because I have not published that research. Heavily in buying L-Rufai buses, London taxi. Remember how many of us you remember London taxi? Heavily. That was 2004. It's 14 years now. And all of those vehicles has gone into extinction. That same year, Amsterdam invested lesser amount than what we invested in tram. What is called tram, a smaller size of light rail. And then bicycle. In 2004, the same year. Today, the trams are as efficient. So people ride bicycle from their house to the tram terminal, park their bicycle there, enter the tram, get to Kubwa, for instance, come out of the tram and hire a bicycle that takes them there from the next to the next, maybe 1 kilometer place where their office are. And they are efficient. Today, road crashes has dropped. The city is efficient. More people use public transport than use their private vehicle, and the city is fine. Here we are, a few years ago, in 2011 or 2012, money came in from subsidy reinvestment, and we went to buy more taxis and give to people in the name of empowerment. So we've been paying lip service to transport. And that's why I say there is no political will, there is no commensurate investment to meet the demand. And until we wake up from sleep, the rest of the world will keep going.
Before I ask you many more questions on how we can actually achieve some of, your suggestions, at least as a consultant and an expert in that sector. Let me go to other questions. Recently we had this trend of online cab request service. and it's definitely, taking over the transport industry,
Yeah.
especially in the big cities
Yeah.
in Nigeria, Lagos, Abuja, Port Harcourt, Enugu, and some other places. It seems to favor, a class of people. That's the truth, based on observation, and we can clearly see that, especially those at least above middle class or middle class. How can everybody be included in this kind of service?
Thank you so much. It's important that I emphasize the fact that the world is going digital. The world, from different perspectives, is going digital. And we must move along with the world. Nigeria is too small to be an island of its own that thinks that we want to do things our way at all times. It's completely wrong. I was speaking like this just last week in one conference, and somebody was telling me that we should leave for Igbo people to be doing their thing. We'll do our own here. I said, what do you have that you didn't get from Igbo people? So there's no way you can say you want to do your own thing when the car you are using, the seat you are sitting down, the microphone you are using all came from there. So you must learn how to follow what they are doing. If a man is standing on the mountain, and mountain is where you want to be, the general thing to do is to follow the footsteps of how he got to the mountain. So, if you go to Dubai, for instance, where I have been, you have one card, a digital card, or you download the app on your phone, and it gives you access to every mode of transport, including canoe on the sea. It gives you access to the train, it gives you access to the bus, it gives you access to the taxi within the city. Just one app, one information, one card. If you don't have an app, you have that card. Wherever you go, you just swipe and they take something out of your account. You go to places like Amsterdam, they even have what they call bus call. That is, you are about to go out from here. There's a bus terminal there. You can quickly just click online. And the bus knows that somebody is waiting at social location. And so even if they have alternative routes to pass, because somebody is already waiting, they will choose this route. So the taxi advocacy, innovation in Nigeria, in particular in Nigerian cities, is a welcome development that every one of us need to plug into. As a matter of fact, at this level, it's still limited. How do you describe it that I want to go from here, for instance, to Lagos? And the nearest I can do is to start looking for who to ask. Please, which taxi, which vehicle should I enter? Which motor park should I go? It's an outdated mode of looking for transport. Elsewhere, one application gives you access to everything. You just click and it tells you you are going from Abuja to Lagos. These are the number of vehicles going to Lagos. This is their terminal. This is their cost. This is their safety rating. And then you just click one. Make your payment online from your house. The taxi man, or rather the station, the transport company doesn't need to come and have people queue before them to start doing manual payments and all of that. You just get to the station and then you swipe when you're in the bus on your way to Lagos. So the taxi, particularly in cities, for instance, if we have all of that, we will ease troubles. Now, whoever you can trace online, and you can trace his address physically, is more authenticated than the man you just wave by the roadside.
Actually.
So if I know your address online and I know your address physically, then you are more reasonable for me to use. You have, eliminated to some extent the issues of kidnapping and malhandling of people inside vehicles. And you know that anybody who will spend money to have an online platform will make the vehicle decent. Not the local cab that we have here that are so dirty and smelly, that are not usable. So it's an improvement which everyone needs to plug into. One of the questions people have asked is, okay, you said everybody should use it, but not everybody have Android or Apple phone that can access it. And I say it's very simple. I live in a house. If we are 5 in this house, and I'm going to go out in the next 5 minutes, I can ask somebody who have the phone in my house to help me. Last year, the FCT administration rolled out a very comprehensive transport reform that was supposed to start 1st of October last year. But somehow, for political reasons, they didn't start it. And one of it is that all of these taxes, common taxes, would have been banned. Keke Napep would have been removed from all of the major parts of the city, and different strategies. It was mandatory that each taxi must have an AC, and each taxi must belong to a company that have an online platform. All of that are put in place to strengthen regulation, to make sure that everybody who does taxi is traceable. He has an address, he has details, you can access him online, you can access him physically. It's an innovation. It's the direction the entire world is moving. It's only here you go to the road to stop taxi. Elsewhere, you don't find. Nobody will answer you if you stand on the road and you are doing like this. Nobody will stop for you. They will assume that you are one thief who wants to collect the vehicle from them. You use online platform to do your movement.
All right. There's this other aspect that seemed to be on a high increase and has caused lots of harm. The issue of heavy-duty vehicles.
Yeah.
Plying some routes as normal vehicles have led to several avoidable accidents and eventual death. What options do we have as it concerns safe transportation in Nigeria?
Okay, that's also another very serious problem we have along Nigerian highways. And the problem is a simple problem. There is nowhere in the world where flammable liquids, big cargos, are carried on the road. They are carried through pipelines and rail, with one or two tankers and trailers are meant to just convey from a nearby port, maybe to somewhere near the city. It's not meant to be plying everywhere across the country. I give a simple example. From Apapa Port in Lagos to the Murtala Mohammed International Airport, it's a distance of maybe 50 kilometers or thereabout. I'm not sure. Now, that distance has a pipeline installed underground to convey aviation fuel from the Apapa port to the airport for airline operators to use. But that pipeline has not been in use. And as we speak, every day, over 100 tankers carries aviation fuel from the port to the airport every day. Each of those tankers spend 2 weeks to wait on the queue to get the aviation fuel, and spend another 3, 4, 5 hours to get to the airport, thereby getting the traffic confused, creating problems. Each time a tanker stops, you need a big tow truck to move it. And so it stays longer if there is any problem with it. If it falls, it's a problem. If it stops, it's a problem. Yet it has not done on us to say, let's fix the pipeline that is bad, instead of spending that amount of money keeping those tankers on the road. And it's the same across the world, across the country, where there are pipelines that are non-functional. Some are vandalized by people who want to scoop fuel. Others are not good enough. And government is not looking in that direction to say, let's invest sufficiently to take away these big vehicles from the road. So it's a problem. And the answer is simple. Let's get back to the basics. Make pipelines efficient. Let me give this example. Amsterdam has quite a number of ports. And one of the ports, it is a policy that liquid material does not leave the port on road. So if it is liquid, it must pass through pipeline. It's a policy. Assuming we have that, you will take close to 5,000 tankers from Nigerian roads. You know how much that will do to the 6,000 people that are being killed on Nigerian roads every year? 6,000.
Yes.
Dead every year on Nigerian roads. And much of that happens as a result of the contribution of big articulated vehicles, tankers and trailers. We can take all of that off the road. Now we have also the dry ports that are being built right now, like the one in Kaduna. What we need to do is to connect all of those dry ports by rail, which the current government is doing. It's one of the things they are doing. The Kaduna port, I saw that very in the next nearby a few months from now, they'll be having a rail linking directly to that port, thereby being able to convey goods instead of trailers and tankers to that dry port. So if that is done and you have connected all of the ports to rail, you remove burden from the road. And the roads will last longer because they carry less load, and then safety issues will improve and efficiency will increase.
All right. So talking about rail now, the minister, that's Minister of Transportation, Rotimi Amici, on 2nd of May, actually told appointed board members of the Nigerian Railway Corporation not to slow down on, ongoing efforts at revitalizing the country's railway system. This instruction actually comes very timely, with the recent example you just gave about diverting, activities of heavy-duty trucks to the railways. How do you think they can actually improve? This is now you giving an advice. How do you think they can go about this, this instruction, especially in the railway system? Looking at the fact that, the railway system has not been connected in the 36 states, just few states. How do you think we can go about it?
Yes. Nigeria has a 25 years rail development plan, which I consider one of the very, very wonderful documents. If
it's adaptable.
If the will to implement it is as strong as the content. We have a strong, very wonderful rail master plan. But do we have the will and the political commitment to invest sufficiently to make it happen? Yes, the current government is trying on that. I can't take that away from them. But I have my reservations. For instance, one of the rail projects that is so celebrated is the one between here and the airport. Have you tried it before?
No, I've not.
Maybe you need to go and ride it. The coaches are as old as the ones China abandoned 40 years ago. And the speed is as low as snail. What is meant to be a fast, in seconds you are where you should be, which is the practice elsewhere. Go to Morocco, nearby Casablanca in Morocco here. Go to South Africa. I was in Gout training in South Africa from Johannesburg to Swane. In minutes you are there, just a flash. A flash. Then this is what we are doing, and we are celebrating it as success, which was the reason I compared Amsterdam with. You will be clapping for yourself, thinking you are doing well. You are doing nothing. The rest of the world has moved on long ago. So, yes, there is some level of commitment, but I do not think it's sufficient. The second issue is that the level of investment. When you hear the amount called to invest in just 10 kilometers of rail, some other countries will use that same amount to do 50 kilometers of the same rail.
And then you have less of the
and you quality. Have less of quality in addition to the amount, the bogus amount. Because corruption is our problem. Because ineptitude is our problem. Because lack of supervision is our problem. So, whereas government give a sign of commitment, that commitment is not total to give us what makes us to be at par with other nations, which is where my emphasis are. There is some level of commitment, yes. Large amount of money has been voted this year in the budget, last year budget, all of that, going into the rail. But how on earth are we going to come out? Let me give you another scenario. 2017, some partners contact our organization from UK, willing to want to partner with Nigeria in doing a PPP light rail project from Lafia to Abuja. And they asked me for this 25 years rolling plan of Nigeria on rail. They want to see it so that they can see the commitment of government, so that they won't come and invest and then the money is wasted. So I went to Federal Minister of Transport and I said, please, can you give me a copy of this? And for 3 months, I was pursuing them. They are not willing to give me. In essence, what is meant to be a published document for people to use, you are hoarding it. And I pursued and pursued and pursued. And I have to get it through a back door, through one secretary who I had to beg and beg and beg and beg before eventually he was able to pull it out for me. Officially, they refused to give. What do you call that? Now, people are interested in investing. You are hoarding the whole thing and making it look like it's only you that have the powers to control the whole thing. And then you who wants to invest, large amount of money is being voted for it with little results that are not efficient. How much can we really achieve the 25 years rolling plan? There's a need for what I call emergency. If we address rail, we have addressed 1/3 of Nigeria's transportation problem, both in urban and interstate. Would have addressed substantially most of the problem, especially with haulage and all of that. But to me, yes, there is commitment, but I do not think that commitment is sufficient. And the best thing to do is to give full commitment. To make it work.
So you would hold up on that thought, because we'll go on this break, and when we come back, we'll continue this talk. According to him, if you commit to the rail, you have committed to third, if I'm correct, of our transportation problem. Well, let's take this break, and when we return, Mr. Emmanuel will still be in the studio to talk more on transport. Stay with us. You're welcome back. It's still Hello Africa. My name is Prudence Okona, and of course my guest is still in the studio, Mr. Emmanuel John, and we are still talking transport sector in Nigeria and the potentials that are yet to be tapped. Of course, we're saying you mentioned something very striking. You said if we address the rail system, the train, the mode of transportation, that mode of transportation, we have addressed 2/3.
1/3.
1/3 rather. 1/3 of issues in the transport sector, meaning especially in the urban and interstate activities. That having been said, let's move just slightly to the should I say plain mode of transportation. Aviation, exactly. Recently, the federal government, the Federal Airports Authority of Nigeria withdrew its services from Gombe and Kebbi states. Yes, and over airport debts of 607.9 and 124.5 million naira respectively. That's for Gombe and Kebbi. With this development, how do you think these states can come out of this, re-strategize and make returns so there won't be any kind of reoccurrence?
Okay. As I mentioned at the onset of this interview, the problems in our transportation system is a very comprehensive problem that requires very comprehensive solution. The two scenarios you mentioned are isolated cases.
This is just an example.
Just an example. Let me give you an idea. Within 10 years, year 2000 to 2010, 150 airlines were licensed to operate in Nigeria, and they actually started work. But within 10 years, only 9 airlines were remaining. All who started has faded out because they can't cope with the business environment due to different troubles, taxes, multiplied, duplicated, enlarged taxes, poor business environment, unnecessary regulations, too many issues that they can't contend with. And all of them faded out of business. Closed down, closed down, closed down. Why? Because the system has not been liberalized and open for profitability. So, the same issue you are mentioning concerning Gombe and Yobe,
In Kebbi.
sorry, and Kebbi, is the issues elsewhere. Some, they are just, let's just allow it to survive.
There are other states. I just picked them.
That's
because,
what I'm saying. The issues are, how many airlines are going there? Where are the passengers? Who will enter the plane? So if you fly a plane is not car. If you fly, the fuel alone that takes a plane from Abuja to Yobe is enough to buy 4 cars. So if you take it there and there are no passengers to fill the plane, then that plane will operate at a loss. That's why most senators and governors operate private jets, because the commercial jets can't go to some of these states because there will be no passengers to bring back. If you pick only one governor, how much is he going to pay to take care of the flight crew alone before you talk about the fuel? So you don't expect that such airports that are not patronized regularly by planes to make profit. They always go at a loss. And IATA has said that Africa generally will lose about 100 billion this year in aviation. Now, because of this challenge in Nigeria is supposed to be the hub for the entire Africa. It is cheaper as we speak to fly from Nigeria to Turkey, Istanbul, then back to Cameroon. That is a trekkable distance from here. It's cheaper than getting a plane to take you from here to Cameroon. That is just 1 hour flight. You go there and come back 3 days, and it's cheaper than you going directly from here to Cameroon. Why? Because 1, the business environment is not accommodating for profitability for airlines. Number 2, we don't have the sufficient passenger number to fill airplanes. And somebody who doesn't have food, you are talking about entering plane, when he can just enter, sit down on top of truck and go from Gombe to Lagos. You're asking him to come and enter plane because it's too expensive. I told somebody I was sponsored for a program to Germany, and I was in a program. I was giving them the cost of flight from Abuja to Lagos, and they were asking me, is he 2 countries, or how many countries did I fly? That I'm telling them that I spent 40-something thousand naira. It's a surprise to them because from Germany to Netherlands, you don't need that amount. But in Nigeria, from Abuja to Lagos, that's expensive. And that is even small because there are more passengers on that route. If you fly from here to Asaba, or you fly from here to Maiduguri, then you know how expensive it is. Because when we don't have the passenger number to match the demand of the airlines are not making profit. So movement is difficult. It's a comprehensive problem. And until we sit down, this is the same thing we had a session during the Transport and Tourism Conference just last week, which I was one of the speakers. And our emphasis remains that we need to sit down and address these issues comprehensively. Like you mentioned during your prologue, our population is growing twice the size of the economy. People are getting poorer, and the number of people are increasing, yet the country is getting poorer. So if people are getting poorer, how do they fly? They don't fly. How much is your salary? How much is my salary? So we need to up our gain in the economic status of Nigeria. That is critical. And number 2, we need a comprehensive air transport plan that addresses all of the critical issues, including all of the taxes. There are too many taxes that an airline pays that won't make him. I was also given an example the other day. It's cheaper to import goods from China in Asia to Nigeria than to import from Zimbabwe or Ghana to Nigeria. It's cheaper, transport-wise. Why? Because those people are already established. If they make a little loss, such losses are compensated by other gains from other places. But if you use a local airline, if it doesn't make gain going and coming, where will it make it from? Nowhere else. And it's a shame on us. So we need a very comprehensive strategic master plan, which is also part of Nigeria's problem. We don't plan for the future. Apart from issues like the rail that the past government took the pain to develop, there is hardly any other sector that you have a long-term plan. Rail, yes, but talk about road, talk about aviation, talk about urban mobility, talk about taxi system. Nobody have any long-term plan. So any government comes and does what he likes and goes. Another one comes, if he doesn't like what you have done, he abandons it and starts another one. But assuming we have a road, a plan, a master plan that is straight and courageous, that tells us in 2050, this is where we will be. Just this morning as I was coming, I stumbled on an article about, sorry I keep mentioning Netherlands because I've been there several times and I love the system, which I believe Nigeria should adopt. They have just published that by 2030, there will be no use of fossil fuel in cars. That is no petrol, no gas in cars or taxi or any kind of vehicle in the Netherlands. When are we going to start having plans for the future? Everything is about a government. Once the government goes, the new government comes and starts something afresh. It's completely archaic. So we need to sit down, draw with input of experts, not just relying on what government knows. We need government to sit down with the private sector, with advocates and researchers, and draw a clear roadmap. For this and this and this, this is what we are doing. In the next 5 years, we'll be here. In the next 10 years, we'll be here. In the next 20 years, we'll be here. In the next 50 years, this is where we'll be. Until you do that, it's like I make this little joke sometimes. Arsenal and Man U playing in a football pitch, and then there is no goalpost. Has it occurred to you that two big
players
clubs are playing and there is no goalpost? Now it will be a wearisome match. They will play and play. You won't know who is winning. They will be tired and there will be no scoring because there's no goalpost. It's the same.
Time frame.
There's no time frame. You don't know when the match finishes because, of course. Now, that is what happens when you have a system without goals, without targets, without measurable timelines. You keep going. You don't know when you are making progress. You don't know when you are. Each government just clap for itself. We did well. I say, you don't clap for yourself that you did well. Let people clap for you that you are doing well. Otherwise, you are not doing well. And that is what it is in our transport system.
You seem to have answered my next question, but let me reframe it. Okay. And that is more like, what would be your overall counsel in the area of taxes? You know, on some of these, especially in the aviation sector, you know, it's difficult for you to just say, okay, you might even have the money, but you have other things you need to attend to. You might not want to, you know, spend all that for just between here and Lagos, and you'd rather spend a night on the road and all that. So what would be your counsel, especially in the areas of taxis, on the road aspect, and on rail, generally speaking, our transport sector? What would be your counsel? You've mentioned having a plan, but what other things do you think we can do in the area of taxis and other aspects?
Okay. Number 2, next to a comprehensive plan, is a vote. What I call a vote, a financial vote to kick off the system. A lot of money is needed. Elsewhere, where transport is given full attention, you don't build transport infrastructure to make gain. It's a social investment. For instance, there is no amount of passenger that the rail system in London will carry that they will ever make the money they spent on the infrastructure. So for that reason, government need to close its eyes, bring out huge amount, and develop sufficient infrastructure system that will kick off the business. That includes lighting system, talking about electricity. That includes building of resilient infrastructure in the airports, roads, seaports, investing in ICT. During that conference last week, I was mentioning the fact that it's only in Nigeria airports that you sit down and you're asking people, when is the plane coming? It's a cake. Elsewhere, every information you need is right on the screen before your eyes. If you can't get it on the screen, just check your phone and you get it. We need to invest in ICT. Somebody was telling me that at the airport, you fill 29 forms because you are exporting. You are carrying 1 carton of yam out of 9. 29 forms from table to table.
Actually.
How many days you are on it? So people would rather carry their load from here to Tema in Ghana to export. They'll carry by road to Tema because it's cheaper, the processes are easier, the bureaucracies are lesser. So all of this will be addressed by policy, but we need infrastructure. So number 2 is voting high amount of money to kickstart the process through infrastructure investment. And number 3 is to liberalize the market, to enable anybody who wants to come in to come in. Remove all of the barriers you put around. Too many roadblocks that makes you look important. Remove them. Let people come in when they want. Put their money in and make their money when they are going. But that is after government have succeeded in building infrastructure, because without infrastructure, no investor will come in. So if you have sufficient infrastructure, people will be interested in building airplanes, bringing in their airlines to come and do business locally. People will be willing to pay to invest in taxis if the roads are good and there's electricity and the internet penetration is high to enable fast, access to the internet by the public who wants to use transport. If all of that are in place, people will be willing. Then the next one is to cope with how the world is moving. For instance, we have no business not signing the Africa Continental Free Trade Area Agreement, which Nigeria started. And then we got to the point of signing. And we withdrew. Right now, it's only 3 countries that are remaining. The rest of the countries have signed. Only 3 countries. And Nigeria is beating its chest and not signing. We have only 1 month now to sign. If we don't sign and it goes into effect, we're in trouble. Now, that Continental Free Trade Agreement have 2 major transport components. Number 1 is the what we call One Aviation Africa, which opens the air transport system
for the whole of Africa.
The whole of Africa country to access. Nigeria will lose out when the whole of Africa is networked and we are an island on our own. Number 2 is the free movement, the protocol of free movement of persons, which guarantees that you can enter any country of your choice as long as you are an African. That also goes along with what we call the borderless Africa, which gives you 1 passport, an African passport, that gives you access to every African country without needing a visa. And then Nigeria is sitting down and doing big boy and said, we're not going to sign because of certain interest and all of that, without looking at the benefits.
It's almost, anyways, I wouldn't want to compare it to what Brexit is doing, but
it's exactly what we're talking about. So the global perspectives and the regional and intercontinental issues, we must be willing to take charge, because that is what we should be doing. So as we are doing our local thing, we must plug into what the rest of the world is doing and go along with the world.
What do you say? Let me chip in this. What do you say about Nigerian air not working as at now?
Well, it goes back to the same issue. Commitment. There is no political will. Or if there is, it is too minute to drive the change that we need. For instance, the amount of money that was used to launch the logo is enough to build an airport. So the commitment is too minute. I think it's much of scoring political gains than making progress for Nigeria. That's my personal thinking. Anybody may disagree with me. So until we move away from politics to what profits the nation, we may not progress beyond where we are.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Emmanuel. John, you have been of immense help, and of course have given us some kind of updates that I know that some of our viewers have thoroughly enjoyed. And we hope that you come back some other time to talk on this and give us more, update. Thank you so much for coming, sir.
Thank you for having me.
All right. It's still a Hello Africa, and we have just had some very intensive discussion on transport sector in Nigeria and the potentials that be. I hope you really and thoroughly enjoy this. All right, we'll go on this short break, and when we return, Hello Africa continues, and of course, Africa in Focus will be next. Stay tuned.